Well, good morning. I can't see anything. The sun's so bright. It is morning though. You usually show up when I'm just kind of finishing coffee or just walking into the shop. But this week, ain't nobody got time for that. So, I'm just trying to finish up on the old T-Bird here. We're still waiting on tires, but those are coming very soon, and you'll see those in a moment. I was gonna say in a moment in Spanish, and then I couldn't remember. Un momento. Okay. Well, I don't really know if that was right. Anyway, if you remember, good morning, by the way. I'm glad that you decided to hang out again. It gets kind of quiet just listening to myself blabber on and on about nonsense. So if you remember, when we flushed the system last week, I just noticed something. Anywho, the heater control valve kind of just crumbled when I was taking it off the hose. And you can see some rust, some corrosion here. Well, this is the new one, but actually I'm looking at it right now. I hope it works. This looks like it's for a 5/8 hose. This looks like it's for a 3/4 hose. So that's great. Well, we'll see if I can get it on. If I can't, we'll try something else. But okay, we're right into it this morning. We are right smack dab in the middle of it. So, what have you been doing? What you been up to? Yeah. Well, I did have a good weekend, and I did nothing. Well, not nothing, but I didn't work on any of my projects. I didn't do anything. I just can't remember most of it. That's not true. I watched some racing because I do enjoy some racing. What else did I do? I fixed a coffee maker. My wife has a coffee maker that broke, and she took it apart, and then I helped her put it back together. So I did that. My best friend from Texas stopped by for a visit because he was in town for a family reunion. Interesting. Okay, let me get a rag, get this stuff off my hands. Let's see. The guy that, I worked on Mr. E for, left a car here over the weekend. It was this 55. He just picked it up this morning. Sweet, sweet car. What else? Yeah, that's about it. It's about all that I can remember, at least. It was a good weekend. So this week, I'm going to finish this car up. We're going to dive into that Sport Fury, the Plymouth, see what's wrong with it. I don't even know. It was just towed here, said it wasn't running right or not running at all. I have done nothing to it. So I don't know what's wrong with it. So we're going to dive into that. And hopefully I hear back from the customer on the 67 Mustang that I kept saying I also had last week, but mine was a 68. But you have to forgive me. My memory isn't always what it was. 67, 68, it's the same body. A little bit different trim, the fake rear quarter vents are different and some things like that. But you know, it's my memory, so I was happy thinking mine was a 67. When I looked it up, it was a 68. Anyway, let's see if this goes on, or if I am going to be a frustrated fella. Okay, it has an arrow on it, so definitely put it in the direction of the arrow. Yeah. I hope I can get this on. Those noises you're hearing are me not getting it on. Maybe what I need. Yeah, oof. If it gets on there, it's gonna stretch it. Let me look real quick. All right, so let me get my secret weapon. My secret weapon is Dawn dish detergent. I'm not sponsored or endorsed by them, but I'm endorsing them for this project for free. So there you go. You could use any brand. It's just the brand I have. We're just gonna soap these up. See if I can get them to slip on with a little lubrication. Nice thing about, you know, dish soap, once you get it on, it just kind of dries. So no leaking problems. All right, make sure I got the arrow pointed the right way. Let's try this again. Hey, the problem with soap is that it's hard to hold on to it after you lube it up. All right, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do something different here, but we're gonna give this a try. Oh, wow, it's not liking it. At all. Okay, so wonder if they make one with a 5/8 nipple instead of a 3/4 nipple, because that's what this one wants. All right, so this Monday morning, this is how it's gonna go. This is how it's gonna go. All right. Let's just embrace the madness. See if I can find one. If I can't, I have another solution, actually. If I can't, I just don't want to do it. I'll tell you what the other solution is, just so that you know. Anyway, so if these are 5/8 lines, this is a 3/4. If I can't find a 5/8 heater control valve, what I can do is run 3/4 line, and then on the ends where it connects to the heater box and to the engine, they make adapters, basically step downs that the hose slides over, and you can use a 3/4 hose on a 5/8 hard line or nipple. So then this will work. It just means I have to replace, well, it's not that long. The hose off the engine kind of is right here. It hooks on. So I have the line. I might have the adapters, but let me just see if I can find this first. So I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I already said that. I don't want you to get uncomfortable with my effusive, excitement over your presence. But I'll try to tone it down. All right. All right, we've got it in. I did end up using those adapters on this end. This is a 3/4 hose with kind of a hose insert ring around it, as well as this side. Of course, the you know, heater control valve thingy-majigger. Fit just perfectly in a 3/4 hose. So I am going to crank up the car. I've got the, I'm going to just burp a little bit, just, you know, make sure we got all the air out of it, run the car up to temperature, turn on the heater, make sure that this moves. Should suck in. So we'll, yeah, okay. Me and you, we're going to do that. All right, so motor's cold. Let's see what we got here. A couple of pumps. This is normal. Okay, I'm going to put this on heat. This on heat. This on high. Oh, it's running perfectly. Look at that. Clock even works. Okay, so we're gonna, you can see where the temp gauge is. We're gonna let it warm up until it kind of steadies out. And as it warms up and the thermostat opens, we'll probably see some bubbles coming out of this. Don't worry about that smoke, that's just burning off the coolant that I spilled while I was doing it. So yeah, so we'll just wait here. While we're waiting, how you been doing? Did I already ask you that? Okay. So, yeah, nice day. I'm not real good at small talk. I'm not a small talker. You know, if you want to have a conversation, let's have one, but I'm not real good at the, you know, how your mama and them conversations. So, why don't we just stand here in comfortable silence while we wait for this to heat up, and then we can kind of come back to it when we've got something to see. All right. Figured I'd check for leaks here where my adapters are. Nothing yet. There's a little dampness there, but that just might be from before. Not dripping, so. Okay, so we have the heater on in here, or defrost, I guess. It's hot. There's the temperature gauge. You can get your head in there. Okay, now we're seeing some bubbles, so that tells me the thermostat's opened up. That's good. Kind of working the bubbles out of it. Ooh, it's silent. Look at that. You can see it opened up right there. You hear the engine kind of go down. Thermostat opened up. Beautiful. Okay, I turned the heater off so you can see that this is moved to that position. Let's turn it back on again. Warm heat. Yep. You can see it's moved out to there. Again, I don't see any leaks yet. Still getting a few burps out of that. And our temperatures kind of evened out a little bit. Right around the O and the R. So let's kick it down. I'm going to turn the heat off so that it's only cycling through the engine. This is such a great car. We'll get a couple bubbles out of there, but we can pretty much be confident that we've got all the bubbles out of that system and we don't have any leaks. And that's the main thing. Okay, so I kind of started diving into this Plymouth, and I didn't try to start it right away. I honestly didn't, the customer didn't tell me too much about what was going on because his dad was driving the car, and all he knows is it started running bad and stalled something anyway. They put it on a rollback, brought it over here. So I just kind of opened the hood, started scanning before I did anything. Just does everything look like it's in the place it's supposed to be? So things like, you know, I might take a look at the fuel filter. It's just right there. I put it there. I should know. Wires on the coil. Are they still on the coil? Yep. Okay. Yep. Looking. I kind of put my hand on the cables and moved them. The negative. That's the word I was looking for. The negative cable is loose, so I tightened it up. This one actually is just a tickle loose too, so I will be tightening that up as well. And then I, you know, checked all the electronicals on the back firewall there just to make sure everything is plugged in. You know, it's an old car. Connections, wires can just separate from their connectors. You know, this is the easy stuff. Let's just look first. So, but everything looked fine. So I went under the hood. I went on the other side of the hood where the driver's compartment is, because that's where you start the car. And I turned the key and nothing happened. So I put this, little electrical reader tool. So let me connect these and I'll show you what I saw. Okay, here we go. Well, now it says 12. It said 9 before. Maybe it's because I have it plugged up to this. That would make sense. This is maybe outputting 12. I could test that actually by doing this. Let's do this. Okay, let's try this. Still 12. Okay, now I'm confused. You just discovered, or not discovered, you just saw me being confused. So it was at 9. I swear it. Now it's at over 12. Let me sneak behind the wheel there, try to start it again and see what happens. That's just weird. It's like the Twilight Zone. I just gained 3 volts just immediately. Okay, all right, let's just see if it turns over. Clutch in. Oil pressure light. Ah, okay. That's more than I got before. That is more than I got before. Let's check it now after I did that. We'll just put that there. This other one here. Same. So normally when it does that, I think there's a bad ground somewhere. There's not enough power from the battery, or the power from the battery to the starter is not, maybe it's being interrupted. I did hear the starter like make noises, but maybe the solenoid is going bad. I don't know. That's also possible. But that would not explain the car running badly, a starter, because it's already running. So this is my guess, okay? 12 volts notwithstanding. I have a charger on it. It's possible that the alternator stopped alternating, and it wore the battery down to a point where it was unable to create a spark, and it started running badly, and then it wouldn't run. So that's kind of where my brain is going. It may not be that, but I'm going to get this battery fully charged while I kind of follow some cables around and just make sure nothing's loose, everything has continuity and all of that kind of stuff. And then we'll come back when this battery's charged, assuming I haven't found anything. If I can get the engine started, well, then I'll test the alternator at that point. So, okay, well, yeah, that was unsatisfying. I'm sure it was entertaining for you to see me just not understand what's happening. But, if you hang around long enough, that's pretty much my constant state. I don't understand what's happening. All right, hang out. I'll let you know what I find. Okay, well, taken a little bit different direction, or the project has taken me in a different direction. I have not taken it anywhere. Um, so we talked about maybe the charging system was, uh, you know, a problem. I was kind of thinking the alternator. Keep in mind, again, when I got the car, I had zero explanation. The tow truck dropped it off. The guy that explained it to me was not the guy that was driving the car at the time, you know. So I had almost zero information other than the car isn't running. Um, so, the battery was low. So I wanted to check all of the digitals and see what was happening, if everything looked good. And everything tested out just fine. So then I went to fuel. So I thought, well, if the battery was low, it could be that it died and he killed the battery trying to restart it many, 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 many times. Been there, done that. So that could be why the battery was low. So I charged it up and noticed that the fuel filter was, a little dark looking. Um, I had noticed that, but there wasn't like a bunch of stuff in it. It just didn't have that bright, happy look that you want to see in one of your clear plastic fuel filters. So I changed that out, and it was restricted. It wasn't blocked, but it was restricted. Um, and I fired the car, and it's fired right up. I was like, well, maybe that solved the problem. And then I turned the car off. And then as I was poking around, I tried to start it again. It just cranked and cranked until the battery almost wore out again, where I put it on the charger. So I got to looking at the carburetor. Let's pivot over here to my display table, aka workbench, aka collector of everything, aka I need to clean it. I don't even know if that's what aka means, but uh, also known as I need to clean it. Okay, I do know what it means. I had to think for a minute though. Okay, so the history of this car that you might not know is that I've worked on it before. Last year I worked on it, the year before I did something to it. Um, and either last year or the year before, it, it was having a really bad backfiring problem on throttle liftoff. It would pop and snap and everything. Now, the owner likes it. He thinks it's cool. He likes it. Whether it's cool or not, I don't like it. It's not right to me. So I got to kind of studying on that problem, and I kind of did the gamut, but I came around to this carburetor. Now this is a Holley 750, 4-barrel. Um, you know, it's a Holley. You can see it. This is what was on the car when he bought it, and I got to thinking, this carburetor is probably oversized for this engine. This is a 383, but it is a bone stock 383. Um, down to the exhaust manifolds, the intake, the heads. There's nothing been modified on this. It has like mufflers on it and a good sounding exhaust and stuff. But as far as extra power, it has no extra power than it had from the factory. In fact, probably by this time it has less power. But it's a solid engine, leaks some oil, but it's got good compression, runs good. It's fine. The engine's fine. Someday it will need to be addressed, but it's an old car with an old engine that works fine. Doesn't smoke, doesn't use oil as far as I can tell, nothing like that. So um, a 750, you can put it on there. You can put 1,000 on there, whatever. But the way this particular carb was set up as a 750 with the jets, it was feeding way too much fuel down the throat. Like, it was impossible to lean it out enough. And so I just had this Edelbrock sitting on the shelf. This is a 600, 1399 or 1405, 4-barrel, square bore. This was off of an old project. It worked at the time. I just used something else because I put a different engine in, all that stuff. Or possibly, because I have a bad memory, it came with a pile of parts with a car I bought. I have bought cars with trunk full or boxes full of parts, which included things like extra carburetors that I don't know anything about. But I was curious at the time. I threw the 600 on. It's a little smaller. The car ran. It didn't backfire. Well, it brought it way down. And it was working. I just did it for an experiment. I didn't even charge him. I mean, I had his old one. He had my old one. I just was trying to figure this out for my own pleasure. He's a friend of mine. I just, it's like, this is on the house. I just want to know. So he's been driving around with his Edelbrock for a while, probably a year, maybe longer. And I got to looking at it. And I've got, let's just put it this way, the accelerator pump is not working. And also there's an internal leak going on here. Not good. I think it works for a short time, and then when you go to restart it, it's not working. It's just, it just came off my shelf. I didn't even expect it to work as long as it did, to be honest with you. I was just happy it was. I just thought, well, this is great. They're happy, I'm happy, whatever. So I threw this back on there today while I was trying to figure out this situation. I put the old one back on. I just kind of wanted to remind myself, why did I take this thing off again? Well, this thing, I mean, is eye-wateringly rich. Well, you can kind of even tell just by looking at the thing. But, and it leaks. It's leaking. It's got some seals that are no good. I put it on there. The car started and idled, but it was like, I needed a respirator. It was just, the fumes were awful. And when I took it off again, there's huge amounts of fuel in the intake. It's not good. I'm not putting this back on. I just was curious. Again, this is a freebie. I just was like, let me remind myself why I took this one off when he was having problems with this one. That's a long story. So to make a long story only a tiny bit longer, I ordered another carburetor, a very specific carburetor, one where the floats self-adjust. They do not need to be adjusted. It's a Holley, and it's a 4-barrel. It's a 600. I feel like a 600 is about as high as, this car isn't raced. This car is cruised. Top down, family in, cruised, makes the right noises. All it needs to do is start and run and drive very nicely every time. So the Holley that I bought for it, and it should be here tomorrow, will hopefully solve that problem. So I've come around to thinking that the problem that they're having is the same problem that they were having. They just are having it again because anyway. Okay. So yeah, we'll just wait for that to come in. I'll pop that on. They usually come pretty well adjusted. I shouldn't have to do much to it other than put it on the car and attach it at the different points. And then we're going to crank it up and see. So also when I did have it idling, I had my voltmeter on the batteries and I could see the voltage is climbing. So that tells me that the alternator is charging. Otherwise it wouldn't be climbing because no charging. So anyway, alrighty, that's that. Yeah, let's wait for that carburetor to come in. I'll show you it and why I chose it, right or wrong or indifferent. You know, there's a lot of carburetors out there, but I chose this carburetor for this customer, for this car, for this very specific purpose. Less adjustments, less fiddling, more working. That's the plan. All right. I'll see you when the carb comes in. All right. Well, our new Holly came in, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it since we just spent 20 hours talking about these other old ones. But these come essentially tuned and ready. So I bought this one. It's the, you can see here, 0850C, 600 CFM, vacuum secondaries, manual choke, for 283 to 400 cubic inch, 200 to 400 horsepower. And it requires a spacer. So this is perfectly fitted and suited for this engine. It's exactly what it needs. So you can see the bottom here. It's more of a square bore. And so I've bought the adapter that goes from square bore to spread bore, since of course the car is spread bore. So this will go on here like this. This will allow, unlike this spacer, which you can see the air is going to flow through there and then kind of hit a wall. It's not very smooth. Let's just put it that way. It's not very smooth of a transition, whereas this provides a very smooth and seamless transition from the air going in the carburetor, exiting out here, and shooting into the intake. There's no, you know, blockages or odd corners or whatever. So it's going to run better, be more efficient, and be perfectly sized for the engine it's going in. So there you go. Without further ado, since there's been quite a bit of ado, a lot of ado. Apologize for the ado. Yeah, I'm going to throw it on here, and then crossing our fingers and basically assuming the best, this car will crank and start and run, and we'll take it for a little spin. Well, what you can hear behind me is a car idling. I thought you were with me while I was kind of explaining through things, and you weren't. You weren't with me. I was by myself, talking to myself as usual. So, yeah, it started and it's running. I'm gonna let it warm up. I'm burping the coolant system. I, a couple years ago, flushed the coolant system in this car too, and it really could probably use it again. I can see there's some rust and nonsense in there. But for now, I just wanted to make sure I added coolant and it's good. So I'm gonna wait for the thermostat to open up. Just let it idle here, and then when it is warmed up, we'll take it for a spin. That'll be great. It's a great looking car, isn't it? I'll get out of the way so you can see. I mean, it's, you know, before I saw this Sport Fury, honestly, I didn't even know they existed. I can't keep track of all of the sub models of cars that were submodels of other cars that were made by a different sister manufacturer that I don't even know. So I love it though. Since being introduced to this car a few years ago, I've noticed them all the time now. So it's fun. You think that you like spend your whole life enjoying the car culture, hot rodding, building cars, going to car shows, and you think, I pretty much know everything that's out there. And then one day, when you're, 45 years old, someone says, hey, I'd like to buy a Sport Fury like my dad used to have when we were growing up. And I said, what? I don't know what that is. So I had to Google it. And sure enough, I just love it. Commando, V8, I mean, the things that they, of course, now we have the Voodoo, the Coyote, the, I don't know, Hellcat. You've got some pretty macho sounding engines, but Commando, I like that one. All right, I'm gonna just kind of monitor this, and I'll, once we kind of take her for a ride, you can come along and we'll see how it works and runs, and if it's happy, we'll send her home. Oh, where you been? Whenever the work starts, you disappear. I don't know where you go. It's none of my business. Just saying. Okay, so we took the car for a test drive after the carburetor went on. And a couple things I noticed. The car ran like never before. Ever since this car was purchased and I was working on it, we've struggled with the carburetor being too big. Sorry, I got distracted by a butterfly. Butterfly, helicopter, bird. Anyway, And as we previously discussed, ad nauseum. So it's a dream. It's a manual choke, so you just choke it, crank it, push the choke in, idles. When it's warm, just cranks and starts. Happy as can be. So now I've been able to idle the engine for a while. When I drove it, I noticed the temperature was reading really hot, but I couldn't tell if it was a faulty gauge or if it was actually running really hot. So I looked. I had already previously looked in the radiator. Really gunky. Has well, I threw it away. Oh, it's right here, but I've used it as a rag. There's rust on it. I just dipped my finger in here, and it was just that brown gunk. So we decided to go ahead and do an engine flush. And while we're at it, put a little bit cooler thermostat in it, because this car actually sees some parade duty. And you know, in parades, you're starting, you're stopping, you're idling, you're not a lot of air movement in the radiator. It's a perfect chance for a classic car to overheat in traffic. And a parade is the definition of traffic. Or traffic is the definition of a whichever one, they're the same. So I recommended a little bit cooler thermostat. I think a 180. And I feel like deja vu. Just working on the Thunderbird last week, did the exact same thing. I guess it's the time of year, you know? People are like, yeah, let's do this before we put it up for the winter, you know? So I'm in the middle of a flush. There's no coolant in it right now, because I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to put the new thermostat in. And also, while it was idling, being flushed, I ran my little temp gun. What's your temperature? Whoa. Well, let's just say you shouldn't be alive. So, don't look directly into that, by the way. I kind of shot the water neck in different areas and compared it to what the gauge was reading, and the gauge is reading high. So I think, you know, gauges are like 30 bucks, and this has, you know, one of those little gauge pods in it. I think I'm going to swap out a gauge. I think I'm going to actually have already got one coming. So I'll swap out that gauge, and it comes with a sender that screws in here to the water pump area. Let's just try to get the temperature more accurate, and just make sure, especially if this thing is sitting and idling and driving and cruising, whatever, we want to know that the information we're getting is the right information. So anyway, so yeah, good news, bad news, and different news. That's what I'm doing. Oh, well, okay. You remember, you know, way back when I was testing all the electrical stuff, 12-volt system, and when I did get the engine started for a short time, my voltmeter started climbing. And so my initial guess that the alternator stopped alternating, he lost charge. Eventually the engine said, hey, I can't even make spark anymore, and then it died and it wouldn't restart. That was kind of my initial finding, or guess, based on the little that I knew. And then we got sidetracked with the carb because it was clearly not happy and hadn't been for a while. There was some history there. If I can't get the engine running, it's kind of hard to test things. So fixed that, got it running, noticed overheating, started doing this, and then I had an idea. Because it was idling here for 30 minutes as it was flushing, I just put the you know, test leads on here, turn this little bad boy on, just to see if it's making juice. Guess what? Well, I don't know about you, but voltage dropping, like, I don't know, a point a second. It's alternator's not charging. It was alternately charging and not charging. Apparently, that little bit that I ran it, I was getting it coming up, but in the 30 minutes that I ran it, never once did the volts go up. In fact, I think it's at like 10.5, and we started off at 12.7 in 30 minutes. So, yeah, so I'm replacing the alternator now. So it's okay. Some of these things needed to be done as a matter of maintenance. I know the owner, and he just wants to be able to drive the car. And if we see a potential future problem looming for him, he's happy for us to take care of that. So he's going to have a much more trouble-free driving. I can't talk, you know, driving experience with less trouble until the next thing goes wrong, because old cars. You know, old cars. So they're fun, but they're kind of like kids. You just never know what's going to happen when you wake up the next morning. What are they going to do? So, all right. It actually reminded me, that whole kids comment reminded me, I have never named this car. I mean, it's not my car, but you know, you can have nicknames for cars. I've got the Dustang. It's not my car either. Yeah, I've known this car a long time, and well, a few years, and I have never named it. So, nor called it any derogatory names, which isn't always the case with kids or cars. Not to their faces. Okay, I am going off the rails here. Yeah, I'm gonna button up some things while I'm waiting for parts. When those parts come in, we'll pop them on, and Bob's your uncle. And he is my uncle. I've already been there. I had two Uncle Bobs, and now I have one Uncle Bob. And so he is my uncle. There you go. All right. Well, that is the conclusion of this, episode, working on No Name Fury. I've got to come up with something. It's not the last time we're going to be seeing this car. I had the hose from the fuel pump up to the filter was an old piece of hose. I had replaced the hose from the filter up to the new carburetor, and that lower piece of hose was leaking. So I just replaced it just now. And yeah, I think we're good to go. I love all of these cars, just so you know. I don't have a favorite. I just love them all. This is a great, great car. It's pretty dead reliable. I think with the upgrades to the carburetor, the maintenance, radiator flush, thermostat that's just a little cooler, and things like that, and also the alternator's charging, is going to make this ready for its fall parade route, and it's going to be happy, and it's going to cruise just great. So super excited about that. In fact, I might even go down there with the car myself. It's in a couple weeks. So, okay, well, I think it's time to have a seat. Talk about the week. Talk about what's coming. Yeah, maybe, if I feel like it. Was that a dad noise? See if I make it standing up. Yep, that sure is. It's just it's just instinctual, I guess. Or maybe you have to make those noises to sit down, kind of letting the air out, and standing up, I don't know what you're doing. Creaking. Oh, I hear you. A little less talk, if you please. A lot more action is what you need. Let's get on down to the main attraction. A little less talk, a lot more action. I'm telling you, that would make a good song. I need to keep a notebook. I need to keep a notebook of all these song ideas I have. Yeah, so it might have seemed like this week there was a lot more talk than action. Well, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Like my mom always said. You'll get what you get and you'll be happy for it. I kind of was splitting my week between more than one project because I am going to be out of town coming up for like 4 days. So it kind of eats into my work time, but that's okay. So I was working on what we just worked on, which was the red car, the Sport Fury, which, by the way, you know how they talk about following your hunches? Really, I think the car died because of my original hunch. The alternator went out, and then it eventually stalled and died and wouldn't start because the battery was dead and had no charge. But I'm glad we took the opportunity for some much needed upgrades. I only see that car like once a year, so I don't know what's happening with it in the intervening time. And to get it in the shop and say, hey, I see some issues, let's solve them and make them better for you. Because, sometimes when you own a car and are driving it, these issues just sneak up on you. And you might not notice, how bad it actually is. Or, obviously if your carburetor is leaking on the inside and your accelerator pump's not working, it might be a slow thing and you just get used to it. I don't know. Anyway, glad that we could handle some of those things. I like to, get as much of those maintenance issues done while it's in the shop because the owner enjoys the car, actually drives it. This is not a trailer queen. It's not a car show car. It's when you can take to car shows, but you drive it there and then you drive it home. So, or you drive it to work on a sunny day or whatever. So anyway, cheers. Still way too hot. I love the smell of coffee. I don't know about you. Somebody came up with the idea of cars are people to coffee. I actually have to be honest. I like the idea because I love coffee. Brew. I buy things a lot of time based on what they're named, because we've talked about that before. There's a coffee out there, came out, I don't know, several years ago, called Laughing Man Coffee, and I bought it simply because of the name, Laughing Man. And then I found out like 6 months later that Hugh Jackman, the actor that plays Wolverine, he's a partner in that, or used to be, whatever. I didn't even know. I just like the name. So even though one of the blends was called Hugh's Blend, I just figured, well, he's just one of the blenders, and it's his blend. I don't know. I don't pay attention to that kind of thing. Anyway, I am super glad that you stuck it out with me here, and I think next week, I'm not sure what's going to happen because it's a short week. I won't be around all of the time, but the engine came back for Ella. I am going to go ahead and take it to the dyno to break it in because I don't like pulling engines. So if I put it in, I break it in, something is amiss, then I got to pull it out again. If we do the breaking in on the dyno, tune it, make sure everything's happy, carburetor, everything, timing, then I just throw it in the car, hook it up, it's good to go. So it's well worth the money for the potential saving of a headache. So we'll go into that when we do that, but that's one thing that I was working on this week was prepping Ella and pulling Mr. F's engine. It's on the short list. Tearing the engine apart, seeing exactly what the bad noise is, and going from there. So got a couple of fun episodes coming up, and hopefully we can get Ella on the road in the next couple of weeks, crossing our fingers, and discover what's wrong with Mr. F. So, and there's a new car in the shop, so maybe you'll see that too. Until then, we'll see you next week.